Hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and this is the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. I'm out here in the family playhouse talking about good timekeeping with this good timekeeper. This is the Geochron. It's one of my favorite timekeeping devices, the Geochron. This is the Geochron Atlas 2, as a matter of fact. So the last time I was out here to talk about the Geochron, if I had the Geochron up here, it was the Atlas 1 on this monitor. Now I have the Atlas 2, or to be more specific, it's the Atlas 2B. So that means I actually have two digital Geochron devices right now, the Atlas 2B and not 2B. The Geochron Atlas 1 is what I have. It's now in the house, and it can stay there on the one monitor that most of the family passes by throughout the day. So if we're watching a TV show or a movie or something on that monitor, then of course that's what we're watching. But whenever we're not watching a show on that TV, it's the Atlas 1, and that's on the display there in the house. But now it looks like the Playhouse has its own Atlas Geochron 4K device. Well, it might stay here in the Playhouse, or it might go to my office somewhere in another room in the house, or it might go with me to work. Or if I go on a business trip somewhere and I decide I want a Geochron on the motel TV, this thing can go with me. In fact, when I got the Atlas, the first Geochron Atlas that I got, my middle daughter just really took to it. She loved it, and she wasn't very old. She was like 5 years old at the time, but she understood it. She went in, started customizing things. She really got it. Okay, so and then it would upset her if I ever took that Geochron Atlas somewhere else. It wasn't just in the house on the TV where she was used to looking at it. So this, just a few weeks ago, Christmas time, I unwrapped this, the Geochron Atlas 2B, and the first thing my daughter said was, "You can take this wherever you want to take it." It's like, thanks. I'm glad I have permission. I'm glad we're on the same page about that. So I'm having some fun with this one. It, of course, has all the same great features as the Atlas 1 that I've had for almost 3 years now, but just a few little minor enhancements. In fact, I think this is an apt comparison. Using the Atlas 2B as opposed to the Atlas 1 is kind of like using the newest iPhone versus the iPhone that they sold 2 or 3 years ago. For the most part, and see, I have one of those. Here's an iPhone from about 4 years ago, and it still works just fine. Now, if I had a brand new iPhone and I started using that, I might notice a few things different about the experience of using an iPhone. But for the most part, 9 times out of 10 or better, it's going to feel like just using an iPhone. I might not notice that the new iPhone has a slightly faster processor. It does a few things a little bit faster. It maybe runs some apps a little more smoothly, that sort of thing. But for the most part, I'm just not going to notice the difference. So that's kind of what you'll experience with the new Geochron Atlas 2B versus the old one. There are a few things that run a little bit more smoothly, and just maybe 1 or 2 extra features that the new hardware can handle that just aren't available on the old hardware. But that's something for you to decide what to do. But it was it was a Black Friday special just a few weeks ago, and so I thought, after years of thinking it might be fun to have a second Geochron digital device, I finally went for it and did it. I mean, I was, from the very beginning, when I first got that Geochron Atlas, the version 1, I thought, this is just too good. I don't want to have this on just one monitor. I want it all over the house. I've got clocks. I've got a clock collection all over the house. I got lots of watches and stuff. Wouldn't it be great to have a Geochron in more than one place on more than one screen as I go around the house? But I wasn't sure exactly how to do that without buying just another Geochron. I looked into getting some sort of home video network device that I could plug the Geochron into this thing and then kind of transmit it around the house to different monitors. And when I started looking at the price of doing something like that, I thought I might as well just get another Geochron rather than some sort of weird video network that I really wouldn't need for anything else. So finally, after dragging my feet and thinking about it and having other priorities financially and whatever, I just thought, Black Friday deal, let's just have a second Geochron, and now I can play with it and have fun wherever it goes. Now, that's a big story. But what I really want to tell you about is there are some improvements, some upgrades to the operating system on this Geochron that are available, have been available for a few months now, but I just never got around to telling you about it. So one thing I can tell you is that Patrick at Geochron has reached out to the ham radio community and is doing a lot of things that are interesting to folks that are into ham radio. So some of the updates, some of the even premium features on the Geochron are oriented towards those that are into ham radio, and but most of the things are just fun for everyone. Now, the vast majority of functions and features on the Geochron, the digital device, are available for no additional charge. You buy the device, and there you go. You can just use it to your heart's content. But there are just a few things that they've tried to incorporate into the software that are not free to the Geochron folks to integrate this into the software. So they have a premium subscription model that you can get into if you want certain of the extra features that, for most people, maybe that's not that important. If you don't want to get into the subscription model, you don't have to. So I'll talk about those in just a moment. One thing that some folks have been asking for with the Geochron digital device is the ability to zoom in and see a little bit more detail on certain parts of the world. So a few months ago, there was a major update to the software, and this is something that you just, you tell it to go look for the update on the web. It's connected to the internet. It will download that update and, update the system here. So that's what happened. This was, most of the time, the updates just take a minute or two to download and install, but this one took a little bit longer than that. And once that got installed, there were just a few things that were kind of a hint of things to come, and one being a slight ability to zoom in on the Geochron display. Now, I want to give you a little bit of background because I really admire the way the folks at Geochron, specifically Patrick, who runs the company, how they approached the development of the Geochron digital device, like the one you're seeing displayed here on this TV behind me. So when Patrick took over Geochron and became the owner of the company, there was no Geochron digital device like this. It was all the mechanical Geochrons. And so he's been very good at keeping the mechanical Geochron as a viable product. They refurbish old ones. They'll even build new ones. They've got all the very specific parts and pieces necessary to build new ones and refurbish the old ones. They've updated some of the mechanical technology inside that. So keeping that mechanical Geochron as the basis of the company, as the basis of the approach to this, I think was a great idea. I had the pleasure of just a little bit over a year ago of Patrick actually came and visited me because he wanted to go around and visit Geochron owners and users all across the country in all 50 states. And so he decided to drop in on me one day. And so actually, truth be told, Patrick from Geochron has actually been in this playhouse. But at the time, I only had the one Geochron in the other house, so I didn't have the Geochron out here cooked up at the time. But when Patrick came, he told me about a few things they were working on, one of them being the zoom in feature that people were requesting. And that's also the day I got one gift, one free stuff thing from Geochron. So I've never received free stuff from the companies when I talk about their products. I'm not into that, and that's fine. I'm a fan. And Patrick gave me this. So this is my one gift from Geochron. This is an actual transparency, the exact kind they would have normally used to build a mechanical Geochron. And this is what they look like out of context. So I framed this up with some glass on it, and I could shine a light through the back of it, and it would look a lot like a mechanical Geochron. And this is signed by some of the folks that work there at the company. So anyway, this gives you an idea of what the Geochron, the mechanical Geochron, was based on, and the map that it was meant to show. So it doesn't go all the way to the North Pole, and it doesn't go all the way to the South Pole. It really concentrates on the portions of the world where there's a significant population. So what really impressed me when they developed the digital Geochron is that they based it off the look of the mechanical Geochron. Okay, so basically what the map was showing and what the map looked like, they tried as closely as they could to recreate that on a digital display. I love that they'd used that as their basis. Then they added some extra features, like the ability to change the map. So if you wanted one that was more ham radio oriented, or one topographically oriented, or one that was more of a geopolitical map, you had those options. Then they allowed you the option of having the analemma there or not there. They allowed you to adjust the opacity of the dim areas on the sides of the map where it's darkness versus the middle of the map where it's showing the daylight parts of the world. And then other features were added onto it, like the ability to put customizable pins anywhere on the map so you could mark the locations that were significant to you. And so as they started adding different features, based on the flexibility of a digital version of the map, they still have that original Geochron mechanical look to it. And I love that part of it. Now, one thing, however, is that the Geochron, the original mechanical Geochron, as you can see, you're limited to the size as far as, how big is this display, all right? But if you use a digital display like this, you can make it just as large or as small as the display you want to put it on. Now, the 16:9 aspect ratio means that it's a little bit wider than the original mechanical Geochron aspect ratio. So what you see on the sides, and the very extreme edges of the map on the left and the right, you're going to see a little bit more redundancy than you would on the mechanical Geochron. So one thing that's happened when they've introduced the ability to slightly zoom in on this map, it's what they've called the slim time band. So across the very top of the display, there's kind of a time band showing you the different time zones and what time it would be in those places. Well, you can make that a little more slim, which effectively means that the map zooms in a little bit more because there's a little bit more space available for the map. And it means that the extreme left and right edges of the map don't have quite as much redundancy as they would with the regular display that where the time band looks a little bit more like the mechanical Geochron time band. So just a subtle difference there, but that took a lot of reworking of the software in order to make that map somewhat scalable. Now, there are probably people that think it would be great to have a map that's even more scalable. So let's say, for example, you could zoom in on just North America, and just see that. And you could watch maybe as sunrise happens across the continent and as sundown happens across the continent, you can watch that Terminator line just moving right across the screen. Now, I had some software a long time ago called World Watch, which that software did allow you to zoom in like that. The maps were not nearly as detailed as this map. And what I found was it was really no fun to have a display that was zoomed in on North America because for most of the day, it just looked like nothing was happening. You didn't see any real movement of North America or that Terminator line going on there throughout most of the day. So I didn't find that to be particularly useful feature on that old software. If they were to introduce something like that on the new Geochron Atlas devices, I'm sure I'd try it out. But for the most part, I think I would still leave it set up mostly just to look like the look of the mechanical Geochron. And I love that it's so large here. I made sure when I got this TV, I got the largest thing I could fit in our family vehicle. And I like it. And the Geochron just looks spectacular. And just that little bit of zoom that's available because I do a slim time band makes it look gigantic to me. I would call it a Jumbochron at this point because it's so big and it's so beautiful and the details are there. Now, okay, I'm going to get myself off camera and let's point the camera right at this Geochron and show you some of the great functions and features available. So let's just take a general look at the map here, and this uses the same remote control that was introduced with the Atlas 1. almost 3 years ago. So if you're familiar with that remote control, very easy. If I go to the menu here, the first thing it does is it shows me, I really like this. You've got the Geochron in a small box there in the upper left side. So as you make changes, it's going to show you how that affects the map as you go. So if I just go here and say, let's choose a different map, and I select that, and I can already see how that's going to affect the look without having to go all the way back out to the full display like that. So that's cool. All right, let's look at some of the other things that come up here. First of all, in case there was any question as to which version of the Geochron digital device you're using, there it is down there in the lower left side. It's the Geochron Atlas 2B. All right, let's look at what we have here. Under the General tab, first of all, you have the different maps that you can choose, including a mixed map. And what this does is it changes the map every 30 minutes if you have it on mixed there. If you want just a little bit of a variety of the maps on the screen. Then down here, you can choose grayscale mode, so a simple toggle on or off. And there you can see that it makes most of the stuff on screen grayscale. Now, some of the other layers may not be completely, monochromatic, but the map itself is grayscale when you're in grayscale mode. Then, of course, you go over here, and that's where you can select the slim time band or the original, time band that's a little bit more thick there. Then you've got the analemma on or off. Bright logo. So there's always going to be a Geochron logo right there in the middle of the map display near the bottom of the screen. So what that means is you've got a nice bright logo there, and if you disable bright logo, then it dims it just a little bit, makes it more transparent than it was before. But you can't make the logo completely go away. And I know people have complained about that. I want the logo to completely go away. I understand why you might think that, but I also completely understand why Patrick and the folks at Geochron do not want to make that logo go completely away. That would be like expecting, say, the Ford Motor Company to build a Mustang where there would be absolutely nothing on the car indicating that it's a Ford or a Mustang. No words, no logos, none of that. I don't think that's going to happen. Ford doesn't want to make a Mustang that does not identify itself somehow as a Mustang. So in the same sense, it doesn't bother me at all that the Geochron Atlas is always going to show that it's a Geochron somewhere on the screen there. And the next thing you can select on that line is Imperial Units or, I guess, metric. I don't know exactly how many places Imperial Units show up on maybe some of the other menus. So we'll get into that later. But of course, since I'm in the United States, I'll leave it on Imperial Units. Next down there, you got night mode, which this just kind of dims the entire display by an amount that you can select. So when it's nighttime, just have a little bit more of a dim display, and you can have that enabled automatically, or you can manually just leave that on or off and just have a slightly dimmer, display. So it's kind of nice if you got a place where this is displayed all the time, and at night you want it to be just a little more dim, just kind of, as you set the lighting throughout the office or the house, have the Geochron automatically or manually adjust as well. And when it's on automatic adjustment for the night mode, it kind of, it's able to figure out where you are and make the display dim or bright depending on, what the actual time of day is where you are. The next thing down here is a demo mode. So if I start demo mode, what it does actually is it brings up a display there, and this kind of shows you how the display changes throughout the different seasons of the year. And you can see it interacts with the analemma as the position of the sun goes down towards the winter solstice, and then farther up towards the equinox, and finally the summer solstice. You can see how that would affect the rest of the display, showing where there's more daylight in the southern part of the world during what we would call the winter months up here, and then when here in the northern hemisphere there's more light in the summer months, and that just kind of shows you in one quick display how things are going to change on this Geochron throughout the year. Next, this is something that was introduced just maybe about a year or so ago, configuration profiles. And this was fun for me because this allowed my daughter to come up with all the custom settings she wanted for the Geochron, and then I could quickly change it back to whatever custom settings I wanted on the Geochron. This one, we haven't set up a lot of different profiles just yet, but here I can select the default profile, and that just kind of shows me what it was like from the factory. Or I can go to the dad profile and select that. And it changes a whole lot of the different things that are displayed on the Geochron when I select the dad profile. So there's a way here that you can select which of your profiles should be added to a rotation. And then if you want to, down here, you can select a profile rotation interval. So what I can do is say, well, how about every 5 minutes it goes to the different profiles that I've selected, or maybe, maybe make it a little bit longer. Maybe we'll make that 10 minutes all the way up to 30 minutes. So if you wanted to, every member of the family has their own profile. You could say, okay, let's go from one to the next every half hour or 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is. So it's kind of fun to have that as one of the options available when you have all these custom profiles that you set up. With those custom profiles, you've got basically, I think it's just about everything that you can set with all these setup tabs are linked to that one profile. So it's an easy way to go from having lots of layers to just very few layers, to your favorite layers, to your daughter's favorite layers, changing a whole bunch of things in the configuration with just a couple of clicks. So then in the Layers tab, here you can change the night opacity. So what this does basically is you can say, well, I want the dark part of the world to be even darker, or I want that dark part of the world on this map to show up just, barely dark at all, or maybe no Terminator line at all. There's just no difference at all between the light parts and the dark parts of the world if you want to set that up. So that's a great way to customize that. Also, as you can see, the Terminator line can be what they call normal or soft. So with the soft, it's just a little bit of a blurry line instead of that sharp line. I think that, truth be told, if you want to have it configured the way it would really look from space, you want to probably keep that on normal. But for some people, that soft line is more appealing. So yeah, you have the option. Why not? Human lights opacity. So this is kind of fun because what you can see is it'll show up different places in the world where there might be a lot of lights at night. Again, giving you a view of what it might look like from space, where you see the major population centers have more lights at night. You can have that as part of the display, or you can, leave that a little bit more dim or completely off. You have the option. Additional layers here. You can show shipping lanes. So that's kind of fun to see where the different shipping lanes are as they're transporting goods around the world. Air traffic routes, you can have those showing up here on your display. So fun to have that. This particular version of the software has a static air pollution display, and you can kind of show where the different carbon monoxide levels are throughout the world. And then also there's a layer for population density, so you can have that kind of show you highlighting with different colors where there might be more people, a more dense population in different parts of the world. So you can kind of see where those show up, especially, say, that part of the world. Or it's kind of a neat way to say, look at North America and say, well, look at that. The population density of the eastern part of the United States, it's a lot more than out here in the West. So you can graphically see that on your display. And then down here, there's a demonstration mode where you can turn that on, and it will just kind of show you all kinds of different configurations of how the map could look with different layers, with different maps. You can keep the map that you want, but still through the different intervals, you can show the different layers that are available and just kind of get a demo of that and decide for yourself, oh, I kind of like that layer, or maybe I won't use that layer. Or here you can actually have it show you all those different layers that are available while also showing you how they look with different maps. So it's just kind of fun to try that out as you're deciding, Maybe you're the kind of person that's going to find your favorite setting for every single thing that could be set up on this Geochron. You're just going to leave it that way forever. Or maybe every now and then you say, oh, I want to try something else. I wonder what this would look like. And you're going to just change your different configurations, I don't know, monthly or weekly or daily, whatever it is. So it's just kind of fun to have some demonstration mode that might show you, hey, your Geochron could look like this. The next big tab on setting this thing up would be the pins tab, and this is where you can add up to 50 custom pins on the map. And, it could be somebody's name. And then if you know the latitude and longitude, you can enter those. And then you can even show the time of day where they are or just the location where they are. My kids have had fun setting up little pins to show where maybe friends or relatives are around the world. If we know someone who lives in a different part of the world, we can show them on the map and we can know whether it's daylight or nighttime where they are, what time of day it is where they are. It's just kind of fun to see all that. Under the live option, since this is probably connected to the internet where you are, you can have some live data that shows up. And here you've got, graphical representations of confirmed COVID cases throughout the world. You can kind of see where all the outbreaks are. You've got weather, satellites, the position of the Hubble Space Telescope, the International Space Station, tracking commercial airline flights. You've got the phase of the moon that can show up in the corner of the map display, undersea cables, and this is kind of a fun one showing you where there are active Geochron locations around the world. So if I were to activate that one right here, let's just have a look. Now I go back to the map and I can see, oh, there's where my soulmates are around the world. All the other folks that are using Geochrons. You got some little yellow markings all over there. Usually, most of them are in the northern hemisphere, a lot of them concentrated in the US and Europe, but you can see little dots elsewhere in the world. It's kind of fun to see. Where are people using Geochrons? Next is where you can set up premium layers. So if you want to subscribe to some of these premium layers, there's one that's an earthquake premium layer showing you where there's, current earthquake activity around the world. There's a ham radio premium bundle. So if you're into ham radio, probably some stuff that's very relevant to what you're interested in that can be displayed on the map. An atmospheric layer with a little bit more, premium information that can be displayed on the map. And the International Space Station Live Earth View. Now this is a premium layer that's only available on my Atlas 2B. My Atlas 1 doesn't show that I can do this, and I think that's because it takes a lot of processor power to. What it does actually is it superimposes an image on the map showing the live view from the International Space Station. So as you're tracking the actual location of the International Space Station, you can actually see a view down on the Earth from that location and see what it looks like. A lot of times, of course, it's going to be looking down at a dark world, but maybe you can also see some human lights down there in the view. And of course, if it's running over the top of one of the areas of the world where there's daytime, you can see weather or land masses or all of that stuff, and you get that view if you want to. That's a premium layer that you can subscribe to and add that to the Geochron display. Other tabs here are the Internet tab, where you can identify the local Wi-Fi networks around your place, and you can then put in the password and have it connect to the internet. Or there's actually you can do Ethernet hardwired if you want to, but Wi-Fi is kind of convenient for most of us. Then the time here, where you select your time zone, your local time zone, and tell the Geochron where you are on the map so that it can then display your local time zone correctly. So for me, it would be, the Denver time zone. I select that, and now all of the displays that are relevant to my local time are correct. And then the system tab, this is where you do things like you can download system updates, or at least check for system updates, send debug logs. There's some optimization stuff here like unlimited layer downloads and auto maintenance and performance balancer, some stuff that you can set up there. And Geochron will actually give you some recommendations on the best ways to set that up. You can have a 24-hour scale, or the 12-hour scale that I use, then you can have a seconds display for the local time, or turn that off, especially if you have lots and lots of layers and the seconds display gets a little bit lagged behind because of that. You can just turn off the seconds display. You can show UTC or not. You can have UTC in 12-hour or 24-hour mode, and you can also manually set the time and date. Now, if you were to do that, you could see what the display would look like on different days, different times of the year, different times of the day. Or this could be useful if you're in a place where you just can't connect to the internet for your time updates. But when you do set it to something other than the real local time, and you're trying to use live layers on the map for weather and other stuff, it's gonna those live layers might get a little squirrely. So just fair warning there. So typically, of course, I leave it on automatic time, and this thing will check with its internet connection, check with time servers, and keep itself synchronized to what I call atomic time, right down to the second. So I really don't have a problem leaving it on the automatic time setup, but every now and then I might set it to manual time just to see what things will look like at different times of the year. But I always go back to normal automatic time updates on this, and that seems to work really well. Just a few more things like this. There's automatic location setting there. It's probably pretty useful for ham radio guys. You can manually set that as well. System power down, or reload the program, or do a full factory reset. Some things here. There's some some videos, some kind of help videos and stuff like that, and acknowledgments and credits, and all that sort of thing. And then there's actually a help tab as well on the very top here. And you can select a few things there to help you to, figure out the best way to use some of these functions and features. And so, yeah, I've used it long enough. I should go through these. There's probably some useful stuff there, maybe a few things I don't know. But for the most part, I think I know how to use the Geochron. I probably won't use this help stuff, but it's great that it's there. So I'll go back there. Whew, that was a big overview, but I loved talking about it because I just love the way they've implemented all of these features on our digital Geochron. This is the Atlas 2B. Sometimes I think I could talk about the Geochron all day long, or I could at least stare at it all day long, because it's one of my favorite timekeeping devices ever invented, and I'm just having such a ball with it. And I know some of you are saying, what's the bottom line, Greg? How much does this thing cost? Okay, it's $499. And I know some of you are like, well, that's a lot of money. Well, what you're getting is you're getting a little computer. This is a computer designed to run 24/7. So you can just leave it on all the time. You don't have to leave your monitor on all the time, but if you do, it's beautiful, and I love it. And I tend to leave it on. If I'm home, I turn it on. If I'm not watching some other show, it's the Geochron, and I just come and go, and there it is, and it's beautiful, and I love it. I really do. So the Geochron Atlas 2, it's a 4K device. It's a little computer. It's preloaded to just run the Geochron system on there. So all you have to do is plug everything in, turn it on, boots up after a minute or two, and then you're set to go with just Geochron. Couldn't be more simple to operate. So it looks best in 4K like this, but if you have an HD monitor, it should look fine on that too. It renders out just fine on an older HD monitor that I have. Generally compatible. You might run into a monitor that looks a little squirrely on that, but they test these things, and they don't even use like really super high-end monitors to make sure it's compatible with all these different configurations. So you should be okay there. The newer the monitor you have, the less you'd have to worry about any burn-in on some of the images that might just stay on the screen all the time. So I don't think you'd have to worry about that. I haven't certainly had any trouble with burn-in on logos and other things that are just kind of always present on the screen there. So no problem there. So right now, if you sign up for their newsletter, I believe you can get a discount on buying one of these just for signing up for their newsletter. And it's a good idea anyway. This is a newsletter that it's not going to bombard you with spam email every day. It's really very infrequent, and it's nice, and I enjoy getting the Geochron newsletter. So you might get a little bit of a discount there. Also, they're offering right now, if you buy one of these, they'll give you a 1-year free subscription to one of the premium layers. And so I have that too, and I'm just trying to figure out which one of those premium layers I want to sign up for. But when I do, it'll be fun to have that. And so those are some deals, and takes a little bit of the sting off if you think that's a lot to pay for the Geochron. I got to be honest with you. It's a small business. Okay. I would love it. Just as a fan, I would love it if they sold 1 million units a year, on something like this, but they don't. So you're dealing with a small business. It's very responsive to the customers, nice people, good people. And so right now, the business model, I think that's a fair price to pay, especially when you get something this beautiful. I tell you, if you were just to skip some eating out a couple of times a month, for a little bit, and then buy one of these, it's a totally worth it trade-off financially. I would really, really recommend it. So that's about all I'm going to say on it today. I hope that was informative for you, and I hope you give it a try if you haven't already. I am a big fan of the Geochron, as you can well tell. So that's all for now, and I will have more videos about more timekeeping fun right here on the Good Timekeeping Show.